for you.
No, it's Leduki, bro.
Ah.
Taza's my boy.
That's why I stole that from him. Yeah, Josh Ledoufus. I know that guy.
Leduki. Dude, he fucking texts me all the fucking time, just like voice messages, and all he does is Leduki
Oh, fuck
over
him.
and over.
He hasn't texted me back in months.
It's because I am the favorite.
We'll see about all that.
Because he knows that when he hangs out with me, he's gonna get paid.
He knows he hangs out with other people and get yelled at.
Yeah, it could be it. All right, cool. Yeah, we're live on the YouTube page and the Facebook pages. So what I'm doing is I got the comment section of the YouTube channel on my phone and the comment section of the Facebook page on my iPad because I'm a fancy ass.
Nice.
And we'll go from there, and I'll take comments and read them to you because I can't figure out how to
respond. Nice.
No, to get the shit so they pop up on the screen because I can from like some of them, but not my personal page, I guess. So Matt, why don't you tell everybody why we're here?
Hold on 2 seconds. I'm sharing this so the people of the internet can see. I don't know. You were you're having people on and you're bullshitting. And I was like, fuck, bro, I'll go on. I got nothing better to do. I did Jordan's show a couple of days ago, and most of his guests are on like 20 minutes. We went long. Grapple Union 2 when Javi has me out. Like I did it the first time with Calistine, and I want to say we went like 2 hours. And then when I went back last year, it was about the same. Most of their shows are like an hour and a half, and we went long. And I believe the one with me and John was like the most viewed one they did, or at least it is on YouTube. And then the last one I did too was like, so I guess people find me entertaining.
Not you.
I went back on my own last time, and I was like, oh look, people are like listening.
You keep trying to tell me that you sell seminars out by yourself without John, and I still don't believe you.
I mean, the last one I went to, and I had somebody died. One of the guys that owns a gym out there died. So like 8 students that morning were like, we got to go to the thing. Like he died last night. They're doing a gathering, and I think I still had like, it was like 30 people, whatever it was, something like that.
That's pretty good, especially for a fat hobbit.
People keep calling me that. I'm like 155. I don't understand.
Yeah, but you're supposed to be 135.
No, bro, I used to cut to 35. I used to walk around at like 45, but now I'm like 34. So, I'm going to get a little heavier every year. Maybe if I did tons of blow like some people, I'd be able to
get the weight That's what I need. I got to stop drinking beer and just start doing blow.
Team No Sleep, we're doing coke.
All right. Hey, all right. We're not going to say that shit because I fucking love them.
What? I wasn't even making fun of Seth. I was just Team No Sleep is not a fight to win thing. It is like a universal thing.
Yes, I understand. But when you say that, you know what people are going to fucking say about you.
Why? Are you saying Seth Daniels is cocaine?
No, I'm not saying
So then why would people draw that conclusion?
You're trying to say that. Because you're a fucking asshole. And I fucking love Seth.
Anyway. So, how's your quarantine been? I see you've been shooting guns. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's the joys of being in Florida and not in communist New York. Is I can
you can own guns here. I don't know why you think you can't. You can't shoot them because if you're in a building or the houses are kind of close to each other. So if you were to shoot even like a small caliber 22 handgun outside, you would pierce your neighbor's walls. 100%. You would pierce through the house. So that's why that's a thing.
I'm just saying, fucking New York has some gay ass gun laws. I'm sitting down here.
Yeah, but in Jersey, I'm pretty sure in the entire state, in Jersey, you can't fire your guns on your property either.
You're not supposed to fire your guns within city limits, anyways.
This is what I'm saying. Well, you were firing them in the backyard. Like you guys were all shooting in your yards. Okay, well, maybe not you. The rest of you Florida people are posting photos in the fucking backyard.
Yeah. But most of us don't live within city limits. I'm, affluent and live within city limits.
Definitely
not affluent. I am now self-employed and unemployed at the same time.
Yeah.
So, before we get into, the actual real stuff we know to actually discuss and can give a valid opinion on. What is your opinion on all this quarantine bullshit? And
well,
how long do you think we're going to be in it?
my girlfriend sitting on the couch behind me, she's a doctor.
Yeah.
She is not thrilled about all of this wonderful quarantine stuff. She's actually, well, she works in the hospital too. So like, she's like, yeah, I know I'm going to die. It's fine. I've accepted this.
Fucking God bless her, because she's with you and she's serving the public.
Right. So she's getting good dick and she's serving the public.
I mean, there's got to be a reason why you got a doctor.
That's what my mother asked me. She goes, you're a doctor? She goes, yes, like a real doctor, not like an acupuncturist. She goes, no, I'm a medical doctor. Why are you dating my son? I said, because I'm fucking her well. Can you go stand over there, Ma?
That's pretty much how my mom is too, except she lives in a trailer, so a little bit different.
See, Josh Hightower fires his guns in his backyard all the time.
He's in fucking Arkansas.
Oh, they went from 50th to 49th in reading. Bill Clinton.
See, Clinton did something.
Yeah, well, I mean,
besides smuggling drugs.
Well, I'm sure Emil would agree that reading skills must be low there after someone agrees to retire and doesn't in contract.
Oh my God!
I bet you didn't know I even knew that.
No, I knew you knew that. Emil was fucking watching, and he's gonna start fucking commenting, and he's gonna be trying to get me to pull him on here.
No, don't.
Because I'm not gonna pull him on.
It's bad enough the Hasidics in Brooklyn are still having weddings and stuff with 200 people. We don't need to crowd us here, right? There's a quarantine, safe space, social distancing. He has to stay away.
Yeah. Now, I got to say, I am a little worried about you up there in New York because, dude, it's fucking huge, and everybody's a fucking moron.
They're predicting 80% are going to get this. And I probably have it or had it. When I was reading symptoms of it, I said, that sounds like something I had like 2 months ago because I had a really bad fever and I was in pain. And I want to say it was a good 4 or 5 days. And like, you don't have to have the cough. So, and then I was reading articles too, like Bloomberg put out a thing, 99% of the people in Italy that died all had at least one, if not three pre-existing conditions. Like I'd have to pull it up, but it was like 33% had heart disease and 35% had diabetes. I don't remember what the other one was, but it was another one where you're like, oh, and the average death rate's about 80. So, I mean, like the purpose of the quarantine isn't to stop infection. It's to slow down people all going to the hospital at once, which means they're expecting all of us to more or less get it.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I'm not like one of the conspiracy junkies or anything like that, but I mean,
you're not?
No, I'm not. I love Spencer, but I'm not Spencer. Spencer's been sending me some articles and shit like that, and
he sent me one. I shut down everything in it, bullet point by bullet point. I said, "Bro, stop."
I mean, I don't have time to do that, but I do not.
Easy. It was like the first bullet point was like, yeah, after the people die, their brains turn into cockroaches, and it was like some ridiculous shit like that. Where you're like, bro, what the fuck? Like, okay.
Oh shit. Well, I know you're not gonna die. I hope your soon-to-be wife, because I mean, if you don't,
whoa, she can hear you. She can hear you.
Yeah, if you don't wife her up,
she can't.
You're a moron.
She can't hear you.
Yeah. Well,
did I ever tell you? In this gym I used to train at for a few years, the guy in charge had a rule of the only times it's socially acceptable to get married. I believe Gary Tonin posted that online once, and right, and it was like,
I remember
if you're really really old and they're very very young and you're gonna die anyway. I forget what the second one was, and the third one was if they make like just significantly more money than you, then it doesn't matter if you get divorced and it's fine.
I'm in that boat. I am gonna die young because I mean, look at me and look at how I live, and my wife makes so much more fucking money than me because she's got a master's degree and I run a jiu-jitsu gym. So, yeah, smart move. Yeah. Not on her part, but on my part. Yeah, and a very successful promotion and clothing company and coffee company, sir. Take a step back. Okay?
Now, when you say successful, what is your total net worth?
Bro, if I say that on here, the government's going to come for me.
No, they won't, because you can just say you were lying. As long as you don't put it on your tax return. You can say I'm worth $10 million. That doesn't legally bind you to that. That's how that works, right?
Well, let's say that. That's a nice number. I'm worth $10 million.
That's why Trump and some of these guys don't release tax returns, because you can't fake that.
It's true. That's true. All right, so let's start talking about something that we actually understand, and that's grappling promotions. Oh. Labor of love.
Ryan, I don't know his last name.
McGuire.
Yeah, you know, he did reach out to me after the podcast I did with Jordan, and he, you know, apparently he said some of my numbers were wrong, but it was like 99% were right, but then there were like 2 or 3 he said were wrong, and I was like, well, these are the numbers you gave other people, but so yeah, people always ask me like, how do you know like numbers? And I know you know Substars numbers because you worked with them. I know Kasai numbers because I know a lot of guys on those cards. I physically
know Kasai numbers too. Yeah,
right? I've physically seen contracts. I've done contracts. I've done some super fights for Eddie Cummings before he disappeared into the wilderness. I did some for John for a while. I've done some for some of the other guys that people don't know I do them for, that they don't even know I'm friends with. So like I have a generally good idea of what each person makes anyway in like certain brackets. But like I've seen numbers, you know. And people always ask me, how do you know the Hammersteins over $100,000? I'm like, you can call them and ask to rent it out.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah. I also know what ECW paid for it, and I know what Ring of Honor paid for it. Those numbers are on the internet. These aren't like it's amazing how like the guys on the internet that do jiu-jitsu will go completely out of their way to steal someone's DVD and not pay the $20 for it. But when it comes to getting like information, they fail miserably at getting information. It's really not hard to get information in 2020.
Yeah, not that hard at all. And all right, so we've established that both of us are fairly competent in running promotions because, you know, ran like 20 events. You ran a bunch of events as well.
I ran one grappling event. I've run multiple music events. I've run tons of pro wrestling events. And people don't know, but a lot of the grappling people that run shows talk to me all the time about bouncing off ideas and I just don't go out of my way and be like, hey, that show owes me.
Yeah, it's a pretty close-knit community, even though it seems dysfunctional from the outside of the promoters, because, I mean, everybody fucking hates you and they like to make that public knowledge. I know you've been around.
I mean, my response is always, well, why do they hate me? There must be a reason, and I'm sure there's a reason I dislike them too. And what do you care about any of that?
Sure. Let's go with that. I'm just trying to establish that we're not talking out of our asses. All right, we both run events. I manage people. You've managed people in the past. You've negotiated contracts and currently negotiate contracts. And we kind of know the lay of the land. And like we talk about public knowledge, the thing I kind of point out to everybody is Fight to Win puts out their salaries and commissions, not like individual, but they put out how much they're paying out every event.
I don't. The email they send out can't people easily get that?
Yes, yeah, that one too. But I mean, granted, that's not like what they're paying the top guys, but you know, I mean, it gives you a base model of what they're paying the regional competitors.
Yeah, well, it's weird too. Is like when you look at the payout for it, it says purses and ticket percentages. So. Yep. People look at that and think, wow, Seth and Missy are paying them all this money. It's like, no, some of that is a ticket percentage. Like, how did you think that Purple Belt got paid $1,000? Well, they sold like, 50 tickets, 60 tickets at $50 a pop, and then they got their 20%, whatever it is. So even that, people can't even look at basic information and figure things out. So I think it is important when people go out of their way to explain it to like people that watch the shows. This is what goes on. This is how things are done. It's like when you watch shoot videos for like pro wrestling. Yep. People are like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. It's like, well, now you do.
Yeah, I was just watching a bunch of old Pancrase and some of the new Josh Barnett's Bloodsport stuff with Sean Daughtry and my buddy down in the USVI, Eric, on here.
I know two guys that did Bloodsport. Sumi was on it, and Harry Smith was on it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I got a bunch of messages before basically saying that they didn't realize that there was a hard style of pro wrestling as well as like the actual, I know, don't roll your eyes. But yeah, anyways, people are fucking dumb. So honestly, what we're going to do in this podcast or whatever the fuck we want to call this is kind of just like tell everybody where we think grappling is, why it's not where it should be, and I don't know, just how stupid the majority of promoters are, and that's not because they don't have love for the sport. It's just
forget that. Name me one promotion that consistently runs that you don't have to pay to be a part of, right? Like finishers in those shows are great, but you have to pay $100 entrance to do the tournament for $2,000. So there's 16 people in it. They're raising $1,600 from the competitors, and that's fine. That's a completely sustainable model. Like you've done that with Zapatero, but not including those shows. Shows where the only money coming in is tickets at the door, sponsors, pay-per-views, whatever. Those shows, right? Completely pro shows because you're not paying to be on them. Name me one of those events that runs consistently, not like once or twice a year, that isn't massively in debt, makes money, and is still around. And the answer is...
The only one is Fight to Win.
But Fight to Win doesn't pay everyone on the card. They only pay the winners.
Okay, I didn't hear that part. But I will say Fight to Win is probably the farthest ahead of all the grappling promotions because they've been around. Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about sustainable models.
No, and I said this with Jordan too. Like me and Seth Daniels don't like each other at all. Like we don't fucking like each other at all. But I would never say Fight to Win is not a sustainable model. Fight to Win doesn't run. Like, you know, that's I'm not like, I don't like Seth and I don't like Missy, but like I'm not gonna say things that aren't true. Like their model is fine. The only issue with that model is the ceiling can only be so high. It's what we used to do in music all the time is you get like a big band to come in. It's and they can't sell out on their own. So like not like the Metallicas and the AC/DCs, but like you get a pretty big band in a venue with let's say 10,000 people, and maybe they can only sell out 7. Find a local band that can sell 500 tickets. Find another local band that can sell. So like we start to, I mean, that's what Fight to Win does. If Fight to Win, in the beginning, they did a lot more super fights with bigger names. If you notice it, there'd be like 3 or 4 super fights on every card where you had like Tom the Blast. The one I was at in Jersey had Tom the Blast versus Rico Rodriguez, Gordon versus Hulk. There was another big match on there. I can't think of who it was. And I think they wanted Gary but couldn't find an opponent or something. So it was like 4 big names where all these guys are getting like 10 grand a pop, and then you got to pay for the travel, all that bullshit. They don't do that anymore because they realize it's just not sustainable to throw $60,000 into 3 matches.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes total sense. But doesn't Seth and Missy come from a music background as well? So
Seth told me he used to do music shows in where are they, Colorado, wherever the fuck.
Yeah, they're from Colorado.
Music shows. And I said to him, I said, oh yeah, I said, dude, I do music forever. You're doing the ticket seller thing, and I said they do that in pro wrestling too. And like he looked at me like, oh, I didn't know people knew that. I'm like, yeah, this isn't like it's not like a new model. Like this is the time tested model of what works. If you have people that can sell tickets, there will be people in the audience. If you don't have people that can sell tickets, you will not have people in the audience. It's pretty straightforward.
And I mean, from a purely business standpoint, when you're talking about the ceiling, I mean,
it's pretty low. The ceiling's really low.
Yeah, to be fair, like I think Fight to Win's doing it the best right now, obviously, and I think they're pretty much the ceiling as far as sustainability. Because these other events that are thrown on bigger purses,
so I don't.
At least right now.
Sure, but like what I was saying to Jordan was, I said the issue that model always has is, so when I was in Chicago doing my seminar out there, some of the guys I knew were on the card, and they were like, "Yeah, it just didn't draw well for some reason." And I said, "I wonder." And like they booked it like last minute too. They had an issue with the billionaires, all this shit, but. Some of the guys were like, look, this is my 4th time in like, you know, I don't know, 9 months or whatever doing the Fight to Win here. My friends are like, eh. So the issue you have with if they run every weekend, so they do like 50 shows a year. So if they were doing 20 shows a year, if you only went to Chicago twice a year, if you went to New Jersey twice a year, but they don't even run New Jersey anymore. I think Seth even said now that Tom doesn't want to do it, they're probably not going to do it. They mostly do the ECW arena in Philly because the building's cheap. But if you only do Philly twice a year, if you do California, if you do all these places twice a year, you can get people to come back and sell tickets. When you start doing it 3 times a year, 4 times a year,
it gets a little crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, man, I can't sell tickets. Plus, the problem with that is if you just rely on local ticket sellers, and this was an issue over here, is Naga's been doing the pro shows like that, and their pro show, first of all, they're on fight.tv, so nobody even paid to watch it.
Yeah.
And there was nobody there. Like I knew like 10 people on the card. Tim, like one of my brown belts was going to do it too. So I knew all these people. And I asked them, I said, is anybody at this? And they're like, no, there was like maybe, I think they said like 60 people. You know, because they're charging what I charge. And I was like, I felt bad. I'm like, I'm in New York City, but what are you going to do? $70 front row. Like if this is what this is. But I had some names on it. The Naga Pro Series was mostly like, you know, the local guys on it. And it's just like, well, how do you want me to sell tickets for my local event if I'm competing at Naga, and then in 3 weeks I'm doing Grappling Idiots, and then in 5 weeks I'm doing Zapatero? If someone competes once a month, you can't expect them to sell boatloads of tickets 12 times. It's just, that's not going to be a thing. There's
it's true.
So the biggest issue Fight to Win has is smaller promotions coming up and saying, hey, we're going to run in the area too. Why don't you guys do, since Fight to Win only comes once a year, twice a year, why don't you do our show? We'll be a little bit more consistent. And it's like, well, sure. It's easy. I use all local guys in New York, so it's easier for them to sell tickets because their teammates comes, their friends and family, so they can rotate and they can bring people in and they can make some money doing that. The local promotion is always going to have that edge over the bigger promotion with ticket selling. If Kasai goes to Florida once a year and you're running Florida 5 times a year, guys are going to be a little more loyal to you, one, because you're giving them more work, but also they can make more money with you too. So that's what always hurts the traveling carnival, the traveling circus is what I call that, like the traveling circus model. That's what Vince McMahon found out early on too, which is why he bought out all the territories so you had famous people in each spot.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because we talked about how Florida's hard to sell, like just you and me, and we talk about Seth. I mean, so I know Florida's hard to sell from personal experience, but also because most promotions that come to Florida, the bigger ones, I have a hand in the matchmaking and getting people on the card because they know I'm down here. So
are you saying it's your fault?
No, I'm saying, one, you look at the UFC. The UFC can't sell shit in Florida either, I remember looking back, and all this information's out there. It was probably like 2011, maybe 2012. They did a show in Miami, and it only sold like maybe 70% of the tickets. So they decided they weren't going to come back, and they didn't come back for like 5 years. The last
Florida's not a good market for anything. I've asked people in business. I made that post about my friend that's an international wrestler that almost killed a guy in the airport. Besides being he was I believe it was microbiology. Besides being a bio major, Angelo also is a marketing major. He's a vice president in Samsung. He's a little Italian guy. They brought him over to Korea. He was living there for years, even though he didn't speak the language. And I've asked him about certain things of marketing because I'm like, look, I'm running the show. If you can give me pointers, he ran a restaurant. Like he's one of those guys. He's a very intelligent guy. He'll make money at what he does. And he was saying, like, there's just certain places that a market won't run. And I remember I brought up and I said, grappling in Florida sucks. And he's trained down there. His brother lives there. He's gone to ATT down there. And he said something once, like, he goes, even the local MMA shows down here with the guys, for some reason, and we have ATT and they have AKA and all these big gyms, right? Cyborg's down there. He's got a massive chains. Like all this stuff goes on down there. And for whatever reason, it's not a good market. It's not a hotbed.
No, especially for MMA, it's a shit show. We have like 3 promotions down here that run pretty consistently and that do well. But there's always, I remember when I was fighting down here, there was constantly new promotions popping up, and they were always folded because it's just a shit market.
New York too. But New York has that too. Everyone keeps telling me how hard the New York market is, but I was like, bro, my show sold out, and we pulled in. My overhead was like $10,000, and I broke my overhead. So I was like, we pulled in some money. I don't understand why. Like, there's all the gyms are in New York. But for whatever reason, I just Florida. So if you think of big jiu-jitsu gyms in Florida, there's only like two big teams, I think, right? There's Cyborg's team, and then what's the other one down there?
Cyborgs in Miami. So I made like big, like world level competitor.
Okay, if I say New York City, you think Henzo's Marcelo Unity, and then Shaolin, and then some of the small, and then JT Torres, and like that's 5 world class in a few miles. There's another gym in Florida besides
so
Cyborg's team.
Fight Sports is in here. There's an offshoot of Atos is down here. The Gracie Tampa Network's down here.
Gracie Tampa, that's the other one I was thinking. But even Gracie Tampa, like Fight Sports is big because there's like 5 or 6 guys Cyborg has that does worlds at black belt level in ADCC. Gracie Tampa doesn't even have that. You know what I mean?
So and I totally agree with that. But honestly,
like, I'm not shitting on them.
Dude, I'm good friends with all those guys. Yeah. And I mean, I have them on the cards all the time, and they don't sell shit. So I mean,
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, so we're talking about the fact that Florida is a shit territory, but there's also the need to grow these territories so that way the sport can continue to grow. And
I agree with you. But here's what I'm going to say about that. When you had pro wrestling, right? Pro wrestling is always the best. No, anyone that tells you pro wrestling is not a great example of how to grow grappling should shut the fuck up because they don't know. If you look at the way the territories were set up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Florida Championship Wrestling was a big territory in Florida, right? That Dusty was down there. All these guys were down there. But when Florida Championship Wrestling fell, Florida never recovered in pro wrestling. For whatever reason, that was the outlier. There's the only territory to grow that market. If you want to grow a stable market, you need to first have one market that's a hotbed. New York, they lost pro wrestling for a long time, and then Antonino Rocca and all them brought it back. New York was a hotbed in pro wrestling. And you had the Carolinas were a hotbed in pro wrestling, and then you built everything around that. Then you got Georgia, and after Georgia, you got Florida. Mm-hmm. After New York, you got in Philadelphia, and then after that, you got Boston, and then they went. You had California. You have to grow it. Jiu-Jitsu does not have one area that is a hotbed for shows. You can say Worlds and Pans are in California, but no one's getting paid, so I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about people paying money to compete. I'm talking about an area where people can get paid to grapple. There is not one place you can say, right, if you want to do MMA, you go to Vegas. The UFC is always in Vegas. There's tons of gyms in Vegas. That's the Mecca. You can go there. That if you're a real MMA fighter, you want to be serious, blah, 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 you're probably going to go to Vegas to live in, even if you do your camp somewhere else, because that's just where all the shit's going on. So makes sense. If you want to live in New Jersey for MMA, there's tons of MMA teams there, Ring of Combat there, all this stuff. You cannot name me one place where there is a market and a sustainable place of income, competition, anything for any kind of grappling that has submissions in it at all in this country. Now, we can argue New York's probably the best place to train for no-gi because you have Marcelo's and Enzo's and Unity, and California for the gi because you have Atos and the Mendes and all that. But that's great for training. Where are we competing and making money? And there is not a spot to do that. And I think one of the other issues is we have all these little shows, like you have like Subspectrum in the Midwest, and you have Finishers in Pennsylvania. You guys are in Florida. I'm trying to do stuff in New York. Bruce Seck used to do Texas. So you have like these little shows in all these spots, but you don't have something where it's like, that's where we want to go, where we want to make our WrestleMania money.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And to kind of back that up, so I went to Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, not this last one, but the one before it, the 170ers. And dude.
Why?
Because I was cornering someone.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I went to an EBI once.
Oh, dude, I've gone to a bunch of EBIs. EBI 11. So listen, the first few EBIs did really well, especially at the door. But they've consistently gone down and down and down, you know? And I don't think Eddie cares too much about that because he's got that Fight Pass money coming in. But listen, the last one I was at, I got to say there was probably like 300 people there, you know? And that's at one time was the mecca of jiu-jitsu, you know? Like,
how does the Odeum hold? Do you know the capacity at the Orpheum?
No, it wasn't even at the Orpheum. They just went back to the Orpheum, and Spencer was there, and he was telling me there was maybe 200 people in the crowd.
Do you know? Do you know? Because when John did EBI, it was in Texas, right?
Yeah.
No, it was at the Muscle Farm. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and so they've done the Orpheum, they've done Texas.
Do you know the capacity of the Orpheum?
I don't know. I got to say it's probably like 2,500 people. I would assume.
Yeah, so that's not even 10% capacity.
So, and I mean, it's the info's out there. You know, I just haven't Googled it.
No, I'm saying if they had 200 people, that's not even 10%.
Oh yeah, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Like this show that was consistently bringing in big numbers at the door and big viewers when it first came out has gone to shit, you know, and it could be the transition to combat jiu-jitsu, but I also think it's just people are tired of seeing it, you know, like even.
I think it's both. Where's the Muscle Farm? It begins with a B.
Burbank. So listen, Muscle Farm's in Burbank. They did shows there, but I was at EBI. I think it was 11 when Gordon was at 170 pounds and Craig was on the card and Wagner was on the card and Taza. I think it was EBI 11. And listen, they did that in El Monte, which is in the middle of nowhere at this like Roadhouse Mexican bar, you know, and they probably still sold like 500 tickets there.
Yeah.
But it was a big step down from what they used to be pulling in and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it was because they were papering the venue. I'm sure there was part of that, but I don't know. It just shows you that the highest level, the trajectory for live gates is going down.
So I know a lot of people that went when they went to the Orpheum. I keep saying the Odeum because I'm thinking ECW in Chicago, but they kept going to the Orpheum. And I know people that would go to those shows, and a lot of people would get in for free. But still, I'm sure they were selling at least 1,500, 2,000 tickets if it was 2,500. When we were in Burbank, it was a couple hundred maybe. It was like there were
Yeah.
tables because Mona, bald Mona.
Yeah.
Her dad bought like a whole table. They were like at the front because we were standing with them. So there was maybe 10 tables of that, 10 tables of like 5 or 6. And then you had the seats behind it. It was a couple of rows, and that was it. And I don't even think there was 500 people there. And I remember looking around thinking, I was like, oh, because so in pro wrestling, it's called the gimmick. It's called gimmick matches, right? Like you have what is your standard rules match. And then anything else is a gimmick match, right? Submission only, barbed wire, flaming tables, all that. If you do a gimmick match, you can make money doing a gimmick match. So EBI in the beginning was like, it was a new thing. It was fresh. It was different. People liked it. But then if every single match is that rule set, now it's like the standard thing, right? And then you had finishers, Midwest finishers, Grappling Industries did a whole tournament that Taza won because he won the qualifier for that. That was EBI.
Yeah, I remember that.
So now you're seeing all these events do EBI rules. So it's not like the thing anymore. It was the same thing when all the pro wrestling shows started doing death matches. When you had to watch the Japanese death match once a year, it was like, oh shit, they're gonna do barbed wire. But when everyone was using barbed wire and razor blades and flaming table, all this bullshit, it's just like another thing. So consistently having EBI rules kill them, and the combat jiu-jitsu, nobody watches it.
I definitely agree, but to counterpoint that, weren't you the one that was texting Major and Kasai, and it was one of the ones in New York? You're like, I don't even know which rules they are right now because there's so many of them, So like,
I don't know the rule. I didn't know the rules of Kasai. I was like, what are the rules? They're like, they're the Kasai rules. I'm like, cool. Where do I look that up?
Bruce, don't even say the fucking shit's down because they took out the girl matches. Don't even start with that.
Bruce Sec, the lowest rated EBIs are always the female ones because your daughter, Cora, texted me from one of them and she goes, Matt, there's like nobody in the audience. It's the first time I'm at an EBI. It's not sold out. I'm like, Cora, like you can't sell an entire event on women's grappling and expect it to bring in thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers. It's just not going to happen. The money's not there yet. I used to watch Invicta the first time.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I was a big fan of Joanne Calderwood.
I still watch the Invictus.
I don't anymore because they took all their best talent. But I watched it before it was cool. What the Killer Bunny? What's her name? Kamkampa. They had good fights. So I watched the first few Invictus, and I would go into the gym and be like, "Did you guys watch Invicta? These women are killing each other." They're like, no. Okay, like you can't put the ceiling of men's athletics at the same height as female athletics, or you're going to fail miserably. You have to build it up. You can't have you can't have $100,000 card for men anyway, but you can't even have a $40,000 card of an all women's event and expect it to bring that money back in. Doing all women's EBI and combat jiu-jitsu is why it's in the place it's in. And it is what it is. If you think those markets are really big, then you just don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so let's move on to something here because you said two things. One, you said men can't sell a $100,000 card.
No, and neither can little children getting heel hooked and their legs broken, Bruce. People don't want to watch children get broken. I'm a school teacher. I don't want to watch these kids get broken.
So, on a side note, you and my professor Bill, literally the only people in the early days saying, why the fuck are we watching kids beat the shit out of each other on these pro events? And I totally agree with it. Like it's a liability waiting to happen. I don't let people under 18 on the card. I mean, it's just fucking horrible.
Well, I let somebody under 18 do my qualifier. I didn't know they were 17 because they compete in adult divisions. And I let Andrew Tackett do it because his parents were fine with it. Like, there's exceptions.
Yeah, there are always exceptions.
But like the 12-year-old girl and the 12-year-old boy ripping heel hooks. No, why? Yeah. For what? No, who cares? Nobody even cares if they win.
All right, so we established that EBI isn't selling at the door. Third Coast seems to have like probably 300 to 500 people at their events.
The official numbers, if they're doing it legally, is 400. I think it was 400 to 450 standing, and then 200 to 250 seated. So probably somewhere around 300.
So most of it's standing, and I know they have seating on the stage as well. So let's call it 450, 500.
Not 450 max with standing, all standing.
Yeah, but they also have tables on the stage. Because I've seen the shots and stuff.
It's their fire code on the website. I mean, maybe they're bringing the fire code, but
yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but the big events,
breaking the law,
Fight to Win, Kasai, a good EBI, all those events, Third Coast, you're getting maybe 500 people at the door. Okay,
right.
substars, they did more than that. I know some of the numbers behind the scene. What killed them was, one, the guy didn't have the fucking money, which you got to fucking do that. And two, they overpaid the athletes.
You know, one of the smartest things I ever heard in pro wrestling was New Jack goes, if your company relies on your DVDs, because this was like 10 years ago, now it would be your internet stream sales.
Mm-hmm.
If you rely on your DVDs to pay the athletes, your promotion is fucking bullshit. And it's Mickey Mouse, and you're not legit. You should be making the money back on the ticket sales, right? Or your overhead's probably something ridiculous. But if you don't have the money before the show, don't run the show. Don't run the show. Plus, you don't get the money from the fucking streams for what, a week, 2 weeks, depending on what you're using.
Sometimes a month.
Yeah. So, hey guys, I'm gonna pay you in 4 weeks. Bro, I remember.
Dumb.
Crapless Quest did that. The one that Eddie won 45 and 55. Gordon won.
Yeah, the Grapplers Quest Pro.
Yeah, that's right. Gary won 170, Gordon won 85. Yeah. And I remember before the finals, I said, Eddie, Jiao Miao is very upset over there, and he is visibly weeping because he was just told they're going to send them a check in a couple of days. He goes, "What? What do you mean? They're paying us?" I was like, "Go look." And I turned his head, like I grabbed his head and turned it, and you just see Jiao like upset, yelling at Brian and all that. And apparently Eddie and them got their checks like 3 or 4 weeks later, and the Meows got them like 6 weeks later. And I was like, I would just assume we're not getting paid at that point.
Yeah.
I don't like, that's Mickey Mouse shit to me. I don't like, there were people here. Why are we getting paid?
Yeah, no, I totally agreed. So if that is the ceiling, maybe 500 on a really good show, like back in the day, Men of War has probably sold 2,000 tickets, you know?
Kasai at the Hammerstein, it's like I think it's between 1,000 and 1,500, give or take. And I don't know.
Okay, so let's say the ceiling's at 2,000 people watching, okay, in person, and let's assume that we're not papering the audience.
That I would say 1,500, but I'm gonna say if you want to see, the issue is if you want to get 1,500 people to come watch, you have to spend more than you can afford to spend, which is the issue. If you want to draw, we drew like 160 people, my overhead was about 10 grand. So then you have to assume if you want to draw 300 people, your overhead's going to almost maybe double. Now you're looking at a $20,000 overhead. If you want to draw 600 people, you're looking at maybe $40,000. There's no way you're going to draw 1,500 people and not spend close to $100,000 because you need legit names. Not that many people watch grappling, and 1,500 people don't bring in $150,000. Like, that is just the reality of this.
Okay, so now it's time for the reality check. Most grapplers are overpaid. It's
horribly overpaid.
And for me as a promoter, I overpay because I was a competitor. I love grappling and stuff like that and all that fun stuff, you know?
Oh, wait, hold on. Wait. Someone wrote in the comments, Mike Wacker. That's right. The Hudson Valley Grappler has been running upstate New York. I was helping Mike with that. Mike's been running good shows. They had like 200 people up there. Mike will also tell you his overhead was nowhere near $50,000.
Yeah. And the other thing you guys are dealing with in New York is the commission now. But I saw Mike's event. Everything looked awesome except for the stream. And next time he runs an event, I'm going to come fucking help him with that. But great venue, great matches. Looked like it had a good crowd. So if grapplers are overpaid, and this ties into the Corona thing because most of these promotions are kind of dying out because most of them are kind of in debt, you know? And if you're not running shows, and you might not be running shows for the next 5 to 8 months max, like we're going to see a hard reset. Yeah, Jordan Hawley said he's not overpaid. Yeah, you're definitely not overpaid. I love you, Jordan. You're going to see a hard reset on the purses because one of two things was going to happen, you know? Either enough of these promotions were going to like not pay the fighters, that the fighters are going to be like, well, I'm just going to fucking take what I can from the promoters that do pay. And Seth made a post about that saying, well, you can go try to make twice as much over there, but you know my check is always going to clear, you know? So you and I both know that competitors are overpaid because we see what they can draw. How do we get this in competitors' minds that they're not worth $20,000 a match?
So, well, to what Seth was saying, because I work with the commission and Mike Rauka goes through the commission. If I tell, like, who did I fly in? Like, I brought in Keith Kokorian, William, and Andrew Tackett. Like, they came in from other places. If I tell Keith Kokorian or William Tackett, hey, man, I'm going to pay you $5,000, and then I don't pay them that $5,000, I will go to jail because I run through the New York. The purpose of the commission is to make sure promoters pay the talent. That is literally the commission's only job. Yeah,
and make sure nobody gets AIDS.
Right. Well, and then people on Kasai were failing those blood works, which is why it became a standard thing. But nobody wants to talk about that. Yes, they're there to make sure the people pass blood work, and they're there to make sure people make weight. And then, but their main job is to make sure promoters, whether it's MMA, pro wrestling, grappling, boxing, whatever, give the money that they're promising to the athletes. So if every commission got involved in this, then it would be significantly easier to monitor it. But if you let the commission get involved, then you have to work with the commission. If they want to make rules, like if the commission decides no heel hooks, there's nothing you can do about it. That's just like in New Jersey for years, there was no ground and pound of the head in MMA because they didn't want to have it. Everyone else had it but them. And you want to fight in Jersey, that's their rules. So there's pros and cons to doing that. The commission for me is really easy to work with. Whatever I want to do, they let me do as far as like the actual matches. And because they also handle MMA, if I want to do combat jiu-jitsu, we can do all that bullshit too. I think now with all of with the corona, and there's going to be the big gap. The reason why you're seeing these guys get overpaid, though, has nothing to do with that. Is you have guys who have a lot of money that say, hey, they go up to a promoter and go, I'd really like to see Gordon Ryan versus JT Torres. I think that'd be a great match. The promoter goes, yeah, I think it'd be great too. How the fuck am I going to pay them? And someone like Mo or someone else that's wealthy goes, I like grappling. I'll pay them. Whatever they want to get, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. And that's great because now we get to see the match we want to see. Somebody that has tons of disposable money can pay for it, and that's fine. But that is not a sustainable model. That's like a gift. You know what I mean? That's a gift. That's not, hey, let's try to do this. That's what killed Ryan. That's not something you do, hey, let's do this every single show. That's, well, if we can do it, great. If not, let's make sure we can grow our product and grow the athletes and grow everything while that's going on. If I know my main event's going to be Gordon and JT because Mo or someone rich is going to pay for it, I want to get all my local guys on that card that are good. I want to make sure the guys that come in and have the best matches and the girls that come in have the best matches, I want them on that card because people are going to watch it. That way, when I go, hey, look, I don't have Gordon and JT again next time, but I have that guy who you said had one of the best matches you've ever seen against that brown belt that you said had one of the best. But promoters are stupid and they don't book the shows right.
Okay, so this is the point where I'm going to say anything that comes out of Kaplan's mouth is not my opinion. Okay. Now, option 2. All right. Point 2. You brought up the fact that promoters don't know how to build a card. Totally agree. They don't know how to build local talent. You also brought up the fact that you can't run. So I got to say, you can't run a business like a Chechen warlord. Okay. It's not going to work. And behind the scenes, all its promoters know that ACB was paying guys ungodly amounts of money, and for a long
because they were washing money and and everything else. Everyone knows this. Like those guys all went to jail.
Yeah, exactly. And for some reason, athletes still believe that they're worth that amount. People
don't want to believe that they can't bring in thousands of viewers. People want to believe they're more important than they. Not just everybody. Everyone wants to believe they're more important than they are. People want to believe that those guys were. They paid me $10,000 because I can bring in $20,000 of viewers. That's why they paid me. It wasn't because they were washing money. People want to believe what they want to believe, and it's this weird osmosis that just like they. I guarantee you, every athlete that asks for $10,000 truly believes they're worth $10,000. Every athlete that $20,000, they truly believe that. I would put money on that.
Okay, so I think we need to distinguish between two terms: worth and what you can draw. All right. Fine. I believe I'm worth, dude. I think they're worth that. Do I think fiscally that they can draw the amount to make it worth my while? No, not at all. There's a handful of grapplers that can do that. Gordon Ryan can do it. And even then, like I've had on my pay-per-views and stuff like that, it's not always close, or it's not always a huge amount that I bring in extra than what I have to pay him, all right, or what he's getting paid. Cyborg can draw that in Miami. Galvo can draw what he's worth in San Diego. All right, there's a handful of guys that can draw their worth. But for you guys that are coming up, you guys need to understand that the tickets you sell and the pay-per-views you sell, take that number and take about 30% less of that, and that is your value on like a high end, in my opinion.
In any business, you have to double what you're paying for something. If you're selling candy bars for $1, you shouldn't be spending more than 50 cents for them. If you're selling T-shirts for $25, you shouldn't be spending more than $12.50 for them. That's just the way that is. If somebody wants $20,000, that means that they believe they can bring in about $40,000. And I don't know if anybody in jiu-jitsu outside of like, Cyborg in San Diego, Gavao in San Diego, maybe all of his students go, fine. And Cyborg in Florida, maybe all of his students go, fine. But outside of that, right, if you bring Cyborg to Texas, can he bring in $40,000 worth? No. If you bring Andre Gavao to Texas, can he bring in $40,000 worth? No. So this becomes, you see what I'm saying? Like this is the.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody,
I get it.
Nobody wants to like say these things out loud. And
this is why we're saying it, because we don't give a shit.
I don't. And look, and you're gonna. I invented this saying years ago, and then Eddie Cummings has. I haven't spoken to Eddie in months. I hope he's doing well, but he always used to repeat this to me. Yeah, I'm gonna Dean Lister myself. I should have waited for you to stop drinking the beer. I'm gonna Dean Lister myself. I told him no. I was afraid you'd spit it up, right? Because whenever you think of like, wow, there was a lot of talent that just fucking wasted. Dean Lister was the leg lock guy. Dean Lister refused to make a DVD and did not make any DVDs on leg locks until after everybody else did. And I remember his Catch DVD came out, and it was like $100. And then a week later, it was on sale for like $15 online. I was like, wow. And I remember, and then because the rule in the city was don't make DVDs, just do seminars. No one's allowed to make DVDs. And then everybody else started making these DVDs, and they were still like, let's not make any DVDs yet. And Eddie was like, you're right. I'm going to Dean Lister myself. By the time I make a DVD, no one's going to want it because there'll be 1,000 leg lock DVDs.
Yeah, he did.
Which happened.
Yeah.
The other thing that Dean Lister did, and I said, bro, like, because Eddie was trying to get good money for super fights. I said, bro, once again, you're going to Dean Lister yourself. Where Lister did the 80cc's, and you never saw him really do anything else with super fights and stuff because he wanted a lot of money. And sure, he's a 3-time 80. He's a 2-time tournament and 1-time super fight 80cc champion, and that's great. But here's the thing: I can pay you $6,000 for your super fight. If you want 10, I'm not booking you. And Dean would just turn a lot of that stuff down, and he didn't compete and make money. I have no problem believing that some of the top guys like Gavao, who doesn't really compete, is going to say, pay me $50,000 or I'm not going to compete. I have no problem believing guys like Gordon and JT are going to say, pay me $20,000 or I'm not going to compete. The Mendez brothers pay me $20,000. I have no problem believing plenty of guys are going to say that, and then you're going to wind up seeing top guys not really competing much.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up. At what point does it become the promoter's job to say, well, then I'm not going to use you?
I think it's always the promoter's job to say, I'm not going to use you then. No, let me mortgage my house and sell all my possessions so I can pay you to have a grappling match that I know in my heart of hearts is not going to bring that money back. And here comes the other issue. And I was talking about this with Jordan. You look at that Substars card, right? You had Gordon and Tex. I'm sure Gordon got his 20. I have no idea what Tex got. Maybe Tex got 10, right? Maybe he was able to work it up because it was a main event. And you had Cyborg. I have no idea what he got. I'm just saying. Maybe he got 5. Maybe he got 5, right? And then you had Cyborg and Lovato, right? And I'm sure they both probably got somewhere around 10, right? Give or take. Sound about right?
Sound about
right? Okay. So you're looking at $40,000 for 2 matches. Once you book those 2 matches, the rest of the card doesn't matter. There's no one that was like, I don't know if I want to watch Gordon. I don't know if I want to watch Tex. I don't know if I want to watch Cyborg. I don't know if I want to watch Lovato. But I want to watch Jessica Khan. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not picking on Jessica Khan. I was trying to think what was on the card. No, Enrico Coco. Wow. I mean, fuck Gordon, fuck Tex, fuck Cyborg. But Enrico's like, so when you book 2 giant matches like that, the rest of the card doesn't even matter. So you can book those 2 matches, spend your $30,000, $40,000, and then the rest of the card can just be people papering the audience with tickets.
Yeah, and I think that's where that fight to win model comes into play, because that's basically what they do. And it's a sustainable model. And I think, honestly, what you're saying in the beginning about events happening too often is, 1, a big problem, and 2, a lot of these local promotions don't get out of their local area because they're trying to build and that's what Substars was. Substars was a local promotion
with a pro star budget.
Yeah, and I mean, even in because they had like 2 or 3 events before then. They're a local promotion that got too big for the britches. And the problem is, all of us are promoters that love grappling, and we want to build it up and build it up. And it's not anything that's mean-spirited or anything. It's just we want to see these big matches because we're fans, and we don't want to say no to these people because the guy that runs Substars, he was a blue belt. When I started running events, I was a purple belt. So you hear these guys like Wagner, like, oh, hey, I want this. And you're like, oh, Wagner, yeah, sure, whatever. I'll pay you that. That's when you get into trouble, And I think a lot of these promoters are trying to be in this because they want to rub shoulders with these people. They want to be cool.
Yeah. So that's the argument where it's like, why do you want to be president? Where you look at like presidential candidates, right? And it's like 1 or 2 of them will be like, well, I want to change our environment policies and I want to do it. But 98% of them is like, well, I want to be president because I want to be president. Why do you want to run a grappling show? Because I want to run a grappling show. All right, well then you don't need to run a grappling show. That's like, you know what I mean? Why do you want to be a cop? Because I want to shoot minority suspects. Well, then you don't need to be a cop. So like these are like simple these are like simple things. Like you know what? Not only do you not need to be a grappling promoter, you probably shouldn't be a grappling promoter.
Okay, then in your mind, who should be a grappling promoter? Describe someone to me.
Well, with Jordan, I gave 2. I said there's two things that are really there's 2 things. The first is you're very, very wealthy. If you're very, very wealthy and you can just throw money at something and you want to be a promoter, great, throw money at it. And if nobody watches it, everybody still gets paid. You learned your lesson, it's fine. So if you're if guys like Mo want to run shows, great, because they can afford it. So whether the same thing with the Sheiks at ADCC, whether one person watches ADCC or 500 million people watch ADCC, the show is going to go on, everyone's going to get paid. So if you're extremely wealthy and you want to run a show, great. The other thing is if you're someone who's been doing it for a long time, and you know everyone and people can trust you. Like that was the first thing people asked me was, how'd you get all these people on your show? I said, well, with the exception of the Tackets, who you got me in contact with, I said, I know everybody on the card personally. I've known Keith Kokorian for years. I've known the guys from Henzo's for years. I've Renee Souza and those guys from 10th Planet. I've trained with him once or twice. I've trained with Stingray a bunch. Well, I know all those guys. Like I know all these guys personally, and I've either trained with them or I've hung out with them a bunch. So they know if I say, I can pay you this, they're going to get paid this. They also know if I say I don't have the money, I'm not lying to them. So if you've been doing it for a while and you have the credibility, sure, you can take your hand at it, but you still have to have the money up front. But if you're a lower belt and you don't have money, not only do I not need to buy your DVD on leg lock techniques, but you don't need to run a show. You don't.
That's a fair point. So we talked about the second person, someone who has credibility and stuff like that. That's obviously the way to go. Now, we talked about how the overly wealthy are having an adverse reaction because they're raising the pay to a point that's not sustainable in the business yet.
Yeah, WCW. I wish everybody knew about WCW.
Now, I said this to you, and you're like, that's fucking retarded. Oh. Listen.
Okay, I'm listening.
Listen. If these rich guys want to have these matches, why not go back to the bet matches? You got 2 athletes, they find their rich backers. So you use Mo as a good example, right? I love Mo. Good guy. He's helped me out in Zapatero with Gordon events. He's put on ADCC. Let's say there's Mo.
I like Mo. He just doesn't like me. It's all right.
Nobody likes you. And it's just is what it is. Let's say you have Mo, and let's say you have a Chechen warlord. They both have their athletes. They want to grapple each other. The athletes are like, hey, how about I get a backer to bet X amount, and the other backer bets X amount. The backer takes a percentage. The athlete takes a percentage of the winnings. Okay, I think it's not a sustainable model
at all.
No, it's not.
Did you watch Bloodsport? It's not a sustainable model.
It's not a sustainable model. But these guys are going to do it anyways. They're going to throw money in the sport anyways.
But so
make a little bit back. It raises the stakes.
They're gonna. First of all, now you have to find 2 rich people that have to pick teams. What if they both want Gordon on their team and they refuse to do it without Gordon?
Well, I mean, obviously, Gordon's going to go to Mo because he's his boy.
But what if the Chechenian says, no, I will not go against Gordon. He is best grappler. I need to.
That Gordon doesn't get paid.
Okay, what? No, I'm saying, what if you have two guys?
Then Gordon doesn't compete. Gordon has to go to the other events. This isn't this is the only way. This is another option.
Because first of all, it's highly not sustainable at all. It's just not sustainable.
They're doing it anyways. There's constantly
they are and they aren't. What do they do it like once or twice a year? You know, it's not. Yeah. Now you're relying. Look, but it's the same thing with ADCC. I remember used to read those articles when ADCC happened because people used to wonder. I wonder because people didn't realize how rich the Sheiks were. Yeah. I wonder if ADCC is going to happen because it loses money. And it's like, what if the Sheik gets bored of it? What if the Sheik wakes up one day and says, you know what? Fuck jiu-jitsu. I don't want this shit anymore. I'm not paying for this. So if you have a model that relies on two extremely wealthy people just throwing money at it and literally setting money on fire, what happens if Mo wakes up one day and says, you know what? I kind of like this synchronized swimming thing. I'm gonna focus on watching swimming now. I don't really care about jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? No,
I totally get what you're saying. But here's the thing.
You can't
since the beginning. No, you can't grow from that. But look, two things are going to happen. One, when the market resets, because it's going to reset. It's either going to be from this Corona shit or promoters that are going to just go out of business.
Well, I think when the Corona thing ends and everyone's going to use it as the excuse, I think you're going to have maybe 3 promotions running. Kasai was already on its way out. Substars is done. I mean, Ryan.
Wait, who's on the way out?
Kasai is on their way out. What they were going to do, they did one show last year, maybe 2.
They did Texas,
and they did
Orlando.
Oh, they did
Jersey.
3. They did 3. Okay.
I think they did 3 or 4. And for a big promotion, I think that's how often you should run. You know,
wait, honestly. Did they do 3? They did one like the first week of January. Then they did the summertime was when John was in Jersey, and they haven't run since August. Am I wrong? I don't think they haven't run since August.
No, they ran 4th of July.
That was in Jersey. And I don't think they've run since then.
4th of July was in Orlando.
Then and then August was August was New Jersey. So they did 2 month to month back to back, and they have not run since. They have not run.
I'm pretty sure they did four shows. I'm not sure. So I mean, this is all speculation. I don't know.
Look it up right now on the interwebs as you're talking.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were and they didn't shell out the show. The Josh Barnett's Bloodsport at the Showboat, because I showed this to my girlfriend. I said, "Look, this is the same building Kasai's," and she goes, "Wow, look at all those people in the audience." I said, "Yeah, look at all those people in the audience."
So write this down because we need to circle back to the pro wrestling, and I got a funny Scott Steiner story and some like local shit.
Hey, man, he's in the hospital. You saw that, right?
He's in the hospital.
Scott Steiner had like a heart attack a week ago.
Oh shit, that sucks.
That shocked you though?
No, I mean, it doesn't shock me, but I mean, like, that sucks. He's fucking old and does too many drugs and still wrestles.
When you go to the events page on Kasai, it just brings you to the champion. Same with past events, by the way.
Okay, so, anyways, there's going to be a hard reset in the market.
No. Fuck you. Kasai Pro, right here. Kasai Pro was February 2020. Okay, that
was the one that just happened.
Right.
The heavyweight tournament.
The Kasai before that was August. Yeah, they didn't run for...
That's Jersey, right?
Right. They didn't run for 8 months.
And then before that was...
The month before that was...
July in Orlando.
And then they did...
Texas.
April in Manhattan.
Oh, and they did Texas in the beginning of the year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they did 4 shows in 2019, right?
Right, but
that's what I was fucking saying.
Right, but
you fucking dirty hobbit.
Right, but what I forgot about the Super Series because that didn't count as one of the pro shows. What I'm saying is though they've run 1 show in 9 months, right? August, September, October, November.
They just ran one in February. You just said that.
Right, between August and February, you had 1 show.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? That's a huge gap. So they went from running 3-4 times a year to cutting. And I heard someone was telling me Rich was actually sick. That's why, and he doesn't work at the bank anymore. Blah blah blah. But the last 4 shows, the Texas show, the Jersey show, the Orlando show, those shows, the audience was very small, and now they're spacing the shows apart. They didn't have any after February. They didn't announce any upcoming shows. They said coming soon. We will be back.
They were talking about Brazil for a while, though.
Brazil was supposed to be last year, and it got canceled because they wasn't going to make money. They kept saying they want to run New York. They were saying we're going to come back to New York in the summertime. But I know the commission, because they use the same commission as me. The commission in New York, when I spoke to them, said Kasai is not running New York because they don't want to pay for union buildings, and they don't want to do the blood testing and everything because they had a bunch of guys that failed. And even though these guys failed their blood tests in New York, they were using them in Texas, even though they have hepatitis or HIV. I don't know which one they fail for. The commissioner himself said to me, not the ISKA, the New York State Athletic Commissioner, because I spoke to him on the phone multiple times, said, it wasn't the hepatitis that scared us. It was the HIV failure that made us go, yeah, we need the blood test. I said, really? He goes, really? I said, well, fantastic.
You're going to have to say that again because you cut out.
Somebody failed for HIV on the blood test when they ran in New York. That was why all of a sudden we have to blood test every grappling show. So if you're a grappler out there, you should probably get blood tested. And if you have HIV, probably shouldn't be training or competing in a sport where you can bleed. And before you say they have pills for the viral load, that's help. No, but you read online, you can take pills for the viral load count. That matters for STD, sexually transmitted HIV. But if you're a female and you take those pills and you get pregnant, you can still give it to your kid. And if you get busted open and bleed on someone, even if the viral load is low or at 0, you can still spread it blood to blood. That is a fact. That is why they tell you if you take pills for hepatitis, HIV, and all those things, you can still spread it if you get cut open. You're not having sex with the person on stage unless it's weird 50-50 guard. We're worried about you bleeding on them and they have a cut. And it's infuriating that no one's talking about this. Kasai should have said we had some fucking blood work failures and now we're going to start testing, but they didn't. So it's whatever. That infuriates me to no end. Everybody on my show, I said, look, you guys got to pay for blood work. They said, why? And I told them why. They said, I'm right now. I'm going to go get blood tested right now because I don't want to get HIV or hepatitis.
Okay, you ranted so long that I forgot where the fuck I was taking this.
Anyway, the pro shows. I think Kasai is on its way out. I think Third Coast. Ryan said to me, I think the pro shows are dead. And I'm like, I don't think they're dead. I think you guys all need to rethink your models. I could see, but the problem Third Coast is going to have is they're on Flow, and is Flow going to give them money if they're just running a bunch of local Texas guys all the time? I don't know, maybe, right? They have Fight to Win every weekend. Do they really need another show with local people on it? Probably not. So Ryan's between a rock and a hard place. Fight to Win's going to keep doing their thing, but I think all these other promotions, you're going to see them not running. Maybe they'll do one a year. Even Polaris. What does Polaris run? Twice a year?
Yeah, probably twice a year. And I mean, I'm not too deep into the Polaris. I don't know as much about what's going on there as I do here because I mean they're in fucking the UK. All right. So we've established there's a bunch of shit show promotions. There's some good promotions that are still running. Not at the highest way they could be. The market's going to reset. Where do you think the cap is? And somebody asked this, and I'm going to read the question they asked. Hold on. Do you think there's a ceiling on how big professional grappling can get? It's been my experience that if you're in at least a white belt in jiu-jitsu, competitive grappling matches come off as confusing and boring. That, obviously, we both agree there's a ceiling. So let me add something to that.
Yeah.
What do you think the ceiling is financially for an athlete to make right now?
So that's a hard question because the question is
for one super fight. Okay, so a one-off match, flat rate. What is somebody?
But who's the athlete, right? I know Gary Tonin can sell more tickets than anybody in grappling. And when I say because I said on Jordan's thing that I think Gordon might be the only one you can give $10,000 to and pull the money back. I didn't include Gary Tonin because when I think of Gary now, I think of an MMA fighter. But Gary Tonin can sell a lot of tickets. Gary is that rare diamond in the rough of he will always. I've probably seen every Gary Tonin match from 2014 on. Maybe one of them was boring. Maybe two. So when Gary's on the card, there's money involved. I think Gordon, depending who the opponent is. See, that's the other issue. If you give Gary a bunch of money, he'll put on an exciting match. But if you give Gordon a bunch of money and he's facing somebody nobody cares about, he's not going to bring the money back in too. So the issue isn't even what do you think you can pay these guys? It's what do you think these can pay these guys and pay the opponent. The opponent is the most important thing. Why did we watch WrestleMania 1 and 2? Because we wanted to watch Roddy Piper get his fucking head smashed in. It didn't have to be Hulk Hogan. You need someone to draw the money with. Like Gordon and Tex was fun because they were fucking around on social media for a little bit. But if you want to pay Gordon $10,000-$15,000 and you want to make sure people watch, you need to have someone that people want to see Gordon kick the shit out of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the other question. I think paying anyone more than $1,000 for a grappling match is very risky. And what who was I talking to? It might have been Calistine. Someone. I was like, I said, no, it was definitely John, because I said, look, I know what Kasai and these shows pay you. So if you want to do my show, I can't give you those astronomical numbers. I said, but you live in Brooklyn. You teach in 3 different schools. You're going to sell a ton of tickets. I can give you a bigger percentage on ticket sales, right? It was the same with Stingray. Stingray was going to do my last card before it got canceled. I said, Ray, you have like 100 students. So if you literally sell 60, 70 tickets, I'll give you more than 10% of ticket sales. That's more than fair. So the guys that say to you, right, like if Paul Meow and John Meow say, hey, I have a lot of students at Unity, I can bring a lot of them in, offer them a bigger percentage of the ticket sale cut. That way they still have to do their job and they're still getting paid money. But most of these guys are not going to bring in $1,000 worth. They're just not. Like name me guys where you're like, I'm pretty sure if I pay them $1,000, they're going to sell $2,000 worth of tickets.
There's a handful in each city. I'll give you that.
And that's when did they compete before that? When are they competing again? And who's the opponent, right? Are all the Cyborg students going to come out and watch him beat up a blue belt? Probably not.
No.
Right? Will they watch him have a match with Lovato Jr.? Sure.
Okay. 2 points that I want to get to before. This will probably, all right, we're already an hour in. I'll just need to get more beer, but we can keep going.
Yeah, we can go. It's fine. I'm going to get drunk.
No. Listen, I'm cool. Keep going. I'm just saying there's a couple points I want to get to before we get gone. 1, does this make tournaments make more sense?
No. The tournament will always have a place in sports. The tournament's an interesting thing. I run an 8-man tournament because I think 16 is too many. Usually when you look at a 16-man bracket, you know who's making at least the final 8 outside of some random thing. Somebody gets hurt. That's also why I did a qualifier for my 8th spot. I was like, fuck it, let's find the dark horse. Tournaments will always have a place in sports. People like the tournament. But people also understand, what if a guy breaks his hand in the first round? Now he's not going to win. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes on with tournaments. I think you should do tournaments. There's nothing wrong with tournaments. I think if you always do a tournament without good super fights, then you're not going to draw well, because people get bored of tournaments. You know what I mean? Like ADCC is great, but by day 2, I'm like, all right, more matches. 16 man, 5 divisions. I got to watch fucking 90 assholes roll around on the floor. All right, let's keep this going. It does drag.
But I'm talking about like the one night 16-man tournament that EBI did, because for a while that model worked. I think they should have done what the Onnit did. We forgot about the Onnit, because the Onnit doesn't run much anymore either. But they should have just done 2 8-man tournaments. When you look at the 16-man brackets for EBI, you know who's making the final 8 outside of a. But listen, that's for a reason. People want to see a highlight reel too. They want to see some crazy fucking submissions.
A 16-man tournament is 15 matches. An 8-man tournament, 7 matches, which is going to keep the audience more on point. Right? And how many times do you watch EBI matches where you're like, oh, we're going overtime? Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. The rule sets need adaptation and stuff like that as well. What it really comes down to is you need to sell a story. So
yes.
And this brings us back to pro wrestling. For the grapplers who are up and coming, what's the best advice?
Get the WWE Network.
Yes.
Start watching pro wrestling.
Okay, so let's get into some indie pro wrestling real quick and some funny ass shit. So I was at an indie pro wrestling show with my buddy Kenny Lester in the Armory, the National Guard Armory in Orlando, Florida. I saw Scott Steiner do a wrestling match. for like probably a couple $100 in a bag of Coke.
No, I mean Steiner definitely got paid. Steiner gets paid. Steiner gets paid crazy money because what's his name is his agent. But yeah. Hold on. Jacob Probst. If ESPN,
Go ahead and answer that question. I'm gonna get another beer.
Yeah. ESPN used to run AWA Pro Wrestling. ESPN is interesting. I think if ESPN was running it, it would be on the app, and less people would watch it. It's the same issues you're going to have at Flow Grappling. Less people are going to watch it. ESPN was good for the AWA in the beginning, but now you're on cable. I was just looking at the statistic. You know, when I was a kid in the mid to late '80s, people didn't really have cable. People started buying cable in like the early '90s, and then in like 2000, cable peaked, and something like I think it was out of the 300 million Americans, something like 150 million Americans had cable, and then when a few years later, it was like 8.
You're frozen again, Matt. We might be here in a minute, guys. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Yep, still frozen. So I'm going to go ahead and start talking so I can finally get a fucking word in edgewise. So he was talking about ESPN. All right, this brings me to another point. I really think the pay-per-view model for grappling is not something you should do, okay? I'm going to keep him frozen like this because he looks like a fucking moron. But when I started streaming events and doing pay-per-views, I realized very quickly that there's a ceiling to what could be sold. And I think a lot of – oh, he's back again. All right.
Sorry, these dirty Chinese have shitty Wi-Fi and coronavirus. No, what I was saying was the AWA was on ESPN, and 80% of Americans used to have cable, and now only 40% of Americans have cable. So I don't think going on a cable channel is going to help. Cable's on its way out. And I don't think going on an app is going to help because it's the same problem Flow Sports have. I know how many. Like I used to be friends with people that worked with Flow. I know people at other things. They have numbers. You'll never get a number out of Howell, but how many people do you think pay for Flow Grappling every month? It's not a lot. So if you put it on the ESPN app, how many people do you think are going to pay for ESPN and then pay extra to watch grappling? We need to find a way to. I had enough sponsors on my last show that what I made in pay-per-view sales, I was able to get from sponsors. And I can just put the whole thing on YouTube. We need to have more free content because despite the bubble we all live in, most people do not know what grappling is. They've probably never seen grappling.
Okay, so that brings up a good point that I wanted to talk about as well. Free is the way to go.
Free
for sure.
Like a chick on the first date, free, and then you talk to her again. Because if it's not free, you don't call her back.
Is that what happened with your Asian wife?
She's not my wife. Stop calling her that. She's gonna get
Anyways, free is definitely the way to go because one, it makes more sense for the consumer, makes more sense for the operator, and it makes more sense for the sponsors. It's mutually beneficial for
everyone. The athletes. Yeah, I told all these guys, look, I said, guys, I'm trying to make money. I'm gonna have a pay-per-view. It'll be $6. And then it's going to make its way to YouTube, but don't tell your friends it's going to make its way to YouTube. Try to bring in a couple of dollars in the beginning. Trying to pay everybody. But how many people have never seen a Keith Krikorian match? How many people have never seen a John Calistine match, a William Tackett match, an Andrew Tackett match, an Ethan Krellison? How many people have never seen a Nicky Ryan match, Gordon Ryan? Most of the population. But if it's on YouTube, you know how I found out what ADCC was? Back when the internet was like a new thing, I was looking up Josh Barnett and Tito Ortiz fights on YouTube when YouTube first came out. And I was like, what's this Abu Dhabi Combat Club? Oh, shit, okay. And I was like, they're doing mixed martial arts without strikes. I like pro wrestling. They're grappling. Okay, I'll watch this. And I saw Tito Ortiz do it, and Matt Hughes and Jeremy Horn and all these guys I knew from the UFC. So you need free content. And Flow puts a lot of stuff on where it's like, I don't need to hear you guys talk. I want to see content. I want to see matches. Nobody wants to hear you talk. They want to see the fucking matches. But that's also how they make their money. But You're never gonna grow a product like that. You're behind a paywall. You're never gonna grow a product. That's why WWE always did a good job of being on free TV. They're on USA, they're on cable, but they're also on UPN, they're also on Fox, they were on NBC. Like this is just you need free content or there's no point.
And from a business perspective, one, you're growing your brand. Two, you're also able to take more eyeballs to your sponsors, so you can charge more. And I think that's a more sustainable model. So going forward, obviously we're both in the business. We don't want to give away too much. Actually, I don't really give a fuck because people are stupid. Let's build the perfect promotion.
Hold on. Keith Kokorian is watching, and I just want him to know he has 2 fans.
Keith, I love you. Everything I've ever told you, we could still do.
Sexually or financially?
Both. I need a nice little fairy boy like Keith. I like them 145ers that could toss them around. So let's build a perfect promotion. If I'm running a grappling event in, say, let's go with New York, because honestly, I think that's the market to be in right now. California seems fairly dead. I know, yeah. Well, actually, maybe not New York. I'd say probably New Jersey right now, or PA.
New Jersey,
you can still draw.
New Jersey is weird. I don't know why it is, but like there's certain towns you can run where nobody will go, and there's certain towns you can run where people will go. But New Jersey is very cliquish too. So I don't know how to explain it. Like New Jersey, I don't know. New Jersey's weird. It's the same with pro wrestling. It's weird out there.
Okay, what about Philly?
I think Philly's a dead market too. What big gyms are in Philly?
Okay, listen, I'm just trying to fucking get away from the commission in New York because let's face it, all combat sports are dirty. You're paying the mob one way or another. You're either fucking paying them right up front or you're paying them through the fucking commission.
Are you saying because my mother is Italian and Sicilian that I am somehow connections to the mafia?
I'm saying
I don't appreciate
all of these combat sports have some form of connection to organized crime, drug money, or some other illegal forms of money. And that's why people are trying to wash it through these combat sports.
Yeah, but I do think, look, I would not disagree with you on that, but I do think it is possible to run a product that makes a profit. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it. Like, I know tons of people that do illegal, shady shit that would just throw money at me and let me wash their money, like a lot. I know a lot of people that do that. But I think you can do a show and run a profit. I think the biggest issue is, first of all, I didn't have anybody on my card that wanted fucking baseball field numbers. And I think the first thing promoters need to do is when you're starting shows, realize that you're not a big show and you don't need big names because that was like the first pro wrestling show we did. I was booking all the matches and everything, and this guy Joe was paying for money and helping book it. And he goes, I want to get a big name. He goes, what do you think? I said, what's the point? I said, look, if you get Hulk Hogan, we can fill a 20,000 seat arena maybe. But if you don't get Hulk Hogan, they may not even draw. Who cares? But we got Sonny because Sonny was coming back into it. And I said, well, Sonny's easy because people don't want to see her wrestle. They want to see her referee and manage and, just talk her shit. So you could pay her like, $500. She'll come in, she'll bullshit with the audience, she'll leave. So you can do that. Crime Faces on YouTube. Yeah. Right. He was sponsoring my show. I met him. He was sponsoring my show. We were going to do a meet and greet with him. I was going to have people come in, do all that. Someone like that is great because people are paying just to meet the guy and hang out with him. They're not, you know what I mean? And it's not super expensive. I think all of these shows need to use openers and mid-carders and stay away from the main eventers because you can't afford them and their prices are too crazy. And I think if more shows were running successful shows without the big names would go, well, maybe we shouldn't be asking for fucking $30,000.
I totally agree. And now let's add on to that. You said $500. I'm sure that was a long time ago, but in indie pro wrestling, that number,
oh my God, gets you 500. I can get some of these guys to blow me for $500.
Yeah. And now, here's the thing, and it didn't click until I went to some of these indie pro wrestling events. They're always full. They're like 200-300 people.
Yeah. Run a smaller venue and pack it out. I was wondering. I wonder how much I could pay Kay to beat up Keith on film if I booked that match. I was watching her fight. He's in the chat. I was watching her fight the other day, and I was like, I wonder if Keith ever raised his. Yeah, I was like, I wonder if Keith ever raised his voice to her, and she just like beat him up, and he was like, "Please stop hitting me."
Oh, dude, like I would take Kay over Keith in a fight any single day. She's got some vicious ground and pound.
I was like watching her fight. I was like, she can hold her own.
Oh yeah, Kay's gonna be in the UFC before you know it. She's fucking great. But
no, first of all, you don't need to run the Hammerstein Ballroom. I think the other thing too is these guys do it. They want to feel important and they want to have the dick measuring where they're like, yeah, we ran the Hammerstein Ballroom, we ran Madison Square Garden. Like, who gives you shit? Like that's not a thing.
And dude, I get it. Like, I get into that fucking shit sometimes too. It's like I have to fucking pull myself back and be like, no, I'm not gonna fucking book another theater.
Look at I was just saying, look at your show in the theater, and I said to
all my shows in the theater,
bro. I said, Josh, stop. When you got that new theater, I said, bro, I don't know. I don't think you're gonna draw well in that theater. I don't trust the Florida market. All these things, and you're like, nah, bro, you're gonna see. And then you texted me as the show started, so don't say anything. But yeah, there's not a lot of people. I said, Josh, shut the fuck up. I just kept writing Josh. You kept writing, shut the fuck up. I said, but Josh.
Listen, when you play with house money, you do what you want. But anyways.
But you should treat it like it. I also think if these guys treated it like it's their money, I think grappling needs to take the step back. And like, look, ECW sold out the Odeum, which was their biggest crowd ever. I think it was like 10,000 people. And they did it with their guys. It was guys that 2 years earlier, well, that would have been 99. So it was guys that 3-4 years earlier couldn't have sold out a 3,000 seat arena. So you need to build up your, like I had guys on my first show that people never heard of. Like people had never heard of them before, never seen them. I had what's her name? Trinity Pun was on it. I had what's her name from Sarah's oh, I can't believe I forgot her name with the short. Oh my God, what's her fucking name? Oh, she's gonna be so mad if she sees this. I can't believe I forgot her name. Tiffany, what's from Sarah's? What's her name? Cheryl Rock. Thank you. I remembered. She didn't tell me. No, like I had Cheryl. People came up to me afterwards and they're like, oh man, that little Asian girl is pretty good. And Cheryl had a really good match with Kat, and like just local people that these people from some of the gyms had never seen before. And I was like, okay, they like them. If I bring them back, now people will know them. You can build up anybody on your card to be someone that brings people in for tickets. Andrew Tackett had a great match with Matt Diverovi. Most people in that place had never heard of Matt Diverovi before, right? And he actually leg locked Aaron Harris like 2 years ago, and like one of the biggest upsets like ever because he went up a weight class. And Matt did okay with Andrew. Matt was doing well, and then he fucked up, and Andrew took his back and choked him. But people were saying, they're like, bro, Andrew Tackett's like very legit, and that guy hung in for like 5-6 minutes. When I bring him back on the next card, they're gonna remember that was the guy that gave Andrew Tackett a little work. Maybe he'll win. Like, you can build up all of these people. You don't need to bring in superstars. But again, that requires an understanding of booking matches, which none of these people know how to do.
All right. So let's get back to this final point. Because there's people watching that want to run their own grappling promotions.
Don't sell drugs.
Yeah. 1, don't do it. But 2, if you're going to run a grappling promotion, look, we're in the early stages of grappling still. You know, it's only been going around for like, say, 20, 25 years. Okay. Big. And in Brazil, it's a different story because their money's not worth shit anyways.
But in Brazil, they were on TV and now they're off TV. So what does that tell you?
Exactly. But we're in the stages of the early pro wrestling where everybody had their own territories, or the early NFL where it wasn't the NFL. There was the fucking whatever the fuck it was, you know, the different leagues and shit like that.
Yeah, the AFL.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. I think if we all focused on growing our homegrown local talent and growing our markets as promoters and getting these guys to understand that they're not worth what they think they're worth yet, and they need to kind of put in the work and build the audience with us, in, say, another 5 years, we could be at the point where people are able to get $10,000, $15,000 for matches.
Yeah. I don't think that's completely unsustainable in 10, 15 years, but it has to get there. I think if we jump the gun, you're going to ruin it. There's just and look, here's the other thing too. And I say this to promoters that I'm friends with. There's people, they hit me up. They're like, so-and-so wants to be on my show. and they want this much money. And I'm like, look, bro, that guy's not only is that guy not going to bring in that kind of money, but those guys are trying to get a payday, and then you'll never see them again. They're going to show up once or twice, get a ton of money from you, and they're not going to come back. They're not going to grow your product. They're not going to grow your brand. They're there for a payday. And it would be easier if the guys at the top tried to help grow the pro shows. Now, I understand why they don't. Look, I've been doing mixed martial arts and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 11 years. I did pro wrestling for 5 years. I did music I started playing drums in second grade, and I'm 34. So I've been doing music forever. So I understand why a lot of people get burnt out and they go, you know what? This promoter fucked me. That promoter fucked me. I'm just looking to make my money, do my thing, and then keep worrying about myself. I understand why they do that. But it would be like if everybody did what Terry Funk did for ECW, if you had someone come in and help you build your thing, it would make things so much easier. Like guys I had on my first show, I paid them what I could pay them, ticket percentages and all that, and I was real nice with them. Everyone was easy. Everyone was like, bro, let me know when the next show is. I'd love to come back, because there were people in the audience. You didn't treat me like a piece of shit. You showed me respect. You were nice. You were fair as a referee, with all that, right? You didn't people didn't realize at my qualifier, because Tim won my qualifier. Tim's my student. Tim's my brown belt. Me and John gave him a brown belt. I reffed all the matches there. No issues. Points were given when they were supposed to be given. A lot of them were like, I didn't even realize you was your student. You were so fair as a referee. I'm like, well, I'm trying to run a show. If everyone just tried to help grow the shows they were on, and the promoters weren't assholes, because if you help the wrong promoter, fine, this would be easier. But I think the best bet for everybody is to not use guys that want astronomical fees, because it's not feasible to pay them astronomical fees. They're not. That's why all of these shows are disappearing, or they're running less shows, or they're paying less money, right? Even Fight to Win. I think Fight to Win used to pay it was I think it was $500 if you won by a sub for black belt, and now I think it's down to $3. Even that, they had to cut their costs. Remember, whenever that was, when they ran that building, they made a whole post. They had to cut their costs because they're like, look, we can't afford to pay this. So if everyone does their part, this can grow, but it's a community effort. People need to go to shows and pay for tickets. If there's a stream, pay the fucking $10, because the same people that don't want to pay $10 to watch grappling want to know why these guys don't have any money. Well, let's think about that. I think that's going to be the biggest thing you see in the reform, is when these new shows start coming up, you're not going to see people getting paid astronomical numbers. It's going to be more of like the Jordan Hollies and the Tackett's and the Calistines and these guys that aren't coming in and asking for $10,000, $20,000, because who the fuck's going to pay that, especially off a recession?
Yeah, totally agree. Now, that was a nice note to end on. Let's end on a sad note real quick. Don't ever do a fucking pay-per-view. You're going to waste your money. Put it out there for free. People are going to steal it.
My pay-per-view made some fucking money, and then I put it out for free. You can do that. I don't think look, I just
Matt, I love you. The reason your pay-per-view made money is because nobody gave a shit about it.
No, it was $6. It was great. It was great. That's what you should charge for pay-per-view. But
I agree. But look, people
AEW just sold 100,000 pay-per-views. You can't look. You cannot.
AEW, yeah. Okay.
You cannot tell me look, and this is where I disagree with you and Seth. You cannot tell me the pay-per-view model is dead. The pay-per-view model is not dead.
No.
But you need to do it a certain way, and there's a lot that goes into it. And
the pay-per-view model is not dead. The pay-per-view model doesn't work currently in grappling because there's nobody that they care enough to spend the money on to watch. They would rather see somebody buy it and then put it on Facebook Live because they're sitting here with their phone and they're streaming it for you for free on Facebook.
But I still think you can do $5, $6 pay-per-views and people will pay for it.
At a small local level, yes, but you're still going to lose a lot. And I think you'd make way more money by doing it for free and selling the advertising and commercials.
But do what Eddie Bravo used to do with the EBIs. A month after the pay-per-view, start putting matches on YouTube for free. You can do both. There's no reason not to.
I agree. I mean, and this is the nice thing about having opposing thoughts. We'll both kind of test it out, and promoting is a close-knit network. We all got to talk to each other. We're all going to figure it out and figure out what happens and works out the best for everybody. Now, as an athlete, listen to your promoters, okay? At least the good ones. Because if a promoter says, man, I don't know about that guy, or I don't know about that shit, unless it's like they're talking about Matt because they all fucking hate him, like, look, I'll tell you, go do Matt's show. He'll fucking pay you. And I don't think any other promoter would disagree with that. They'll say Matt's a piece of shit. but he's still going to fucking pay you. But listen to the promoters, okay? They're going to tell you who's real and who's not real. We're not out here, at least the majority of us, aren't trying to fuck people and make a shit ton of money. We're just trying to fucking grow the sport.
I see, but I don't know if I agree with that because I know a lot of promoters, and I definitely know guys that tell promoters not to do other promoters' shows, and they don't know that you find out these things. Promoters are weird too.
Okay, well, fucking listen to me because I don't really shit talk anybody too much anymore.
That was one thing. That was my favorite pro wrestling quote ever. In fact, I gotta buy New Jack's autobiography, and I messaged him the other day. I said, "Hey, where can I get your book?" And I said, "Look, I run an MMA gym. I did pro wrestling for a little bit, but I always tell my fighters this quote." New Jack had this great quote: "Wrestling is nothing but street. The promoters are the pimps, the workers are the hoes, and the ring is the track. And you break your body down for these motherfuckers. And when you can't get up on the pole no more, they bring in a new hoe." And a lot of these promoters, especially in MMA, when you can't sell any more tickets, when you can't get hit in the head anymore, they fucking throw you to the side and they bring in the next piece of talent. So I guess I would disagree with you on that. You can listen to promoters. Don't trust promoters. Make sure you get paid what you're supposed to get paid. Trust your coach. And if your coach doesn't know what he's talking about,
don't trust your coach.
Get yourself
a fucking manager like me or like fucking Kaplan.
Wow. But if you can't trust your coach, then why are you using them as a coach? See, this is
another topic. Let's do this fucking Friday, okay? It's an hour and a half in.
James Hunt wants me to tell Ryan Favell, don't be a complete piece of shit. That guy Ryan writes the weirdest things on Facebook. I don't know what's going on in Australia, but it's fucking crazy over there.
He doesn't live in Australia. He lives in Florida.
He does?
Yeah, I know him. I've met him a couple times.
That's crazy. Now that explains everything. He's in Florida.
Yeah. All right. We're out of here. Kaplan, Friday?
Yeah, Friday. We'll figure out a time. Guys, make sure you find on the internet ECW Barely Legal 1997. Start with the first pay-per-view. Work your way forward. It's good stuff.
Okay. Also, you want to support us? NogiNation.com down there. Good shit. Tomorrow, I have an interview at 12:30 with David Aguzzi. Wednesday, I have Billy Tutko from Tutko Tactical. Thursday, I might have Ryan McGuire. And then Friday, Kaplan is back.
Tell Dave Aguzzi I said hello. Dave is a friend of mine. I do have some of
Dave's a good dude. Cheers, bud. I'll see you later.
See you later.